Well, we are joined right now by our junior U.S. Senator from the great state of Alabama, Senator Jeff Sessions. Senator Sessions, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, Cliff. Good to be with you.
Well, appreciate you taking the time. We got a lot of things to talk about here in just a few minutes, so I just want to jump right into it. You know, as the ranking member of the Budget Committee, it's had to have been exasperating that Senate Democrats have essentially refused for several years now to pass a budget, and you've been the guy kind of out in front beating the drum on that, and you finally claimed a big victory a couple of weeks ago when Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid and the Budget Chairman Patty Murray finally agreed to comply with federal law and offer a budget for the first time. I guess it's been almost 4 years now. What does it mean for Republicans to finally have Democrats concede on producing a budget?
It's about 1,177 days or something like that.
Wow.
I really felt like we made some progress when just earlier this week, the Joe Scarborough program, they used that number, you know, the exact number of days, because what we were trying to do was the law requires a budget to be produced every year by the Congress. It even sets the dates, April 1st in committee and April 15th on the floor. It gives priority to a budget. It can't be filibustered. You get full 50 hours of debate and amendments, but it's brought to a conclusion, and a majority can move a budget, and we need a budget. So, and the House produced one. They produce one every year, the Republican House, and it's really a bizarre thing. Well, I felt it was wrong, and we pounded away at it, and I think the pressure grew so much. Finally, you know, the House earlier passed legislation that said that if to raise the debt ceiling, that if the Congress wouldn't get paid if they didn't comply with the law to do a budget.
Sure.
And so that was maybe a factor too.
Well, a lot of people ask me sometimes.
So it's important for them, Cliff, because it requires the majority in the United States Senate and the allies of the president to lay out a budget that they're prepared to defend, that they will assert will make America better, and we get to examine it like they've examined the House budget.
Well, you know, what was their reasoning behind, you know, not passing a budget for this long? First of all, how do they even get away with not doing it? And secondly, has it simply been a political strategy to never have to go on the record or be exposed to public scrutiny?
I know people may think this, you know, hard to believe, but that's basically exactly it. When challenged, Harry Reid, the Democratic leader in the Senate, said it's foolish to have a budget. He was not saying it was foolish for America that we don't have a budget to operate on. He was saying it was foolish politically because they were getting away with attacking a responsible budget submitted by the House that had some reductions in spending in it, while never producing a plan themselves that would either reduce the deficit or not reduce the deficit, how much taxes they were going to increase. So they laid that, you know, they were able to avoid doing that. If you recall, Cliff, when we were able to force a vote on the president's budget that he submitted, he got 0 votes in the House or the Senate. Not a single Democrat voted for it, and they voted against any other budget plan. There were 3 or 4. So they just voted against every plan and therefore were never on record as favoring any solution.
Sure.
And it worked for them politically. It shouldn't have, but it actually, I think, helped them politically in the last election.
Well, that's one of the things that you know, whether you agree with him or not, that you sort of have to have a lot of respect for a guy like a Paul Ryan, who's at least willing to put his name on something and say, this is what I think we should do, and put something out there for debate rather than just, you know, hiding behind procedures and not submitting, never having a plan out there in front of people. But, you know, immigration is something that's also really taken
center stage. Let me just say
center.
on that budget, I don't see how the Democratic majority in the Senate can claim to be worthy of leading America if they don't have the responsibility to even lay out their financial plan for the country when we're on the most systemically unsustainable debt course the nation's ever been on. So anyway, I think you're right. I think this is the House did its duty. It was a good budget. Not perfect budget, but it would have changed the debt course of America. It would have put us on a sound path. The Democrats in the Senate just refused for political reasons, and it just was, I'm glad to see they've finally been forced to do that duty, at least apparently. We'll see whether they follow through or not.
Well, speaking of putting plans out there, a group of your Senate colleagues had put out a plan, a framework for immigration reform, and I've seen a few things that you've said about it. You've been critical of the process, maybe some of the closed-door meetings that the president and other stakeholders have held on immigration. But what's the latest on the immigration debate right now in the Senate?
Well, there are a lot of problems in our immigration system. It needs to be improved, no doubt about it. We need to move to a system that is honest, where the law is enforced, that's orderly. We need to change some of our immigration policies, so immigration that we will keep, and we'll always have a generous immigration policy, but it should serve the national interest. We should try to identify the people who are likely to be successful when they come to America, not go on subsidies from the government immediately upon arriving. That's not happening today. And we need to make sure that people illegally don't enter the country illegally and then take jobs from Americans at a time of high unemployment. We got a lot of good people in Alabama that are not getting jobs. And anyone who thinks that you can bring in a huge supply of low-wage labor and it won't pull down the wages of existing American workers, I think doesn't understand basic economics. So we've got to balance our interest here and make sure that our immigration policy is crafted in a way that helps America and doesn't do damage.
Well, one of the hurdles I have trouble getting over is that I just don't see any reason to believe that the administration will enforce existing immigration law, because they haven't to this point. Do you think that some of the Republicans who have attached themselves to this immigration framework are maybe naive to think that the Obama administration is going to enforce immigration law?
Well, Cliff, that's the big challenge. I really like Marco Rubio, and he's really trying to do something good for the country, and other Republicans that are reaching out here are trying. But we went through that. We've been through it twice, on 2006, 2007. Those plans would not have worked. When the chips were down, the liberal forces here, the combination of certain business interest and certain immigration interest were not the American interest. And they produced a bill that served their interest but didn't serve the American interest. And so I opposed it. President Bush supported it, but I opposed it. And so anyway, what I'm telling my friends who are trying to work on this, if you can produce something good, you'll have support from me. But you've got to know that I lack confidence. Let me just point out that Chris Crane, who's the head of the Border Patrol, the ICE agent, the Immigration Enforcement Agent, he's a union leader and represents thousands of workers. He was asked this week in a House hearing, do you believe that if a law, how much confidence do you have if a new law were passed that it would be followed better than the ones we have today? And he said, quote, I have zero confidence that they would enforce the law now or in the future. I mean, this is the guy that they've sued their boss, John Morton, because he's failing to enforce the law. They voted no confidence in John Morton unanimously and said he's spending all his time traveling around promoting amnesty while not helping them and actually blocking them from doing their job. So it's in this environment that we're being told, let's give amnesty and we promise we'll get enforcement. So we've got to be sure that this we're not taken again. That's exactly what happened in 1986. Some of your listeners will remember this. But in 1986, amnesty was given to about 3 million people. Now we're looking at 11 million. And they were told, we will enforce the law in the future. Don't worry about it. So now we have 11 million people in the country illegally.
Yeah, well, if
the law was never enforced, and now they're saying basically, let's do it again. The American people are saying, get this system under control first.
Yeah, if we can't count on President Reagan to pull it off, then I have a hard time believing we can count on a President Obama, his administration, to pull it off. But Senator Sessions, I really appreciate you taking the time today. I know you got to jump, but appreciate the work you're doing in D.C. and hang in there, keep fighting for us conservatives back home here in Alabama.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you, and good luck. Have a great day.
Thanks. Senator Jeff Sessions.